Gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's June the 20th, 2023. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined this morning by Izubee Charles and Stephen Wagner as we discuss the news of the day. And guys, just when the Florida Gator propaganda was getting totally out of control on social media last night, the Miami Hurricanes got their biggest commitment of the 2024 recruiting cycle to this point, and that is running back Kevin Riley. And we were talking about this yesterday's show, Stephen, and just the fact that who's going to commit first, Jared Gibson or Kevin Riley. And I mentioned the fact that if somebody really wants to be a Miami Hurricane, it might not be a bad idea to jump on the boat now. And sure enough, 24 hours later, I'm not saying that our conversation was the impetus behind that, but 24 hours later, Kevin Riley pulls the trigger. He commits to the Canes. How big of a commitment is this for Miami?
Well, I mean, so far, this is the biggest commitment that they have in this class. So I think that really does say something. But I can tell you that this is absolutely massive for Miami's actual coaches. This is a prospect that they have valued very, very highly, and a prospect that they have been relentlessly recruiting basically since they offered him. He told me a couple of times, Miami's talking to me more than anyone, more than Alabama, Auburn, Georgia, LSU, all of these programs after him. Miami was recruiting him the hardest. This was someone who Miami had insanely high value around. He may be the number 5 running back in this class, but I can tell you that there are a lot of people in Coral Gables who really think that he's the best guy overall. And there is a tremendous amount of excitement about Kevin Riley, and I think for some really, really, really good reason. I had the chance to talk to Charles Power, On3's director of scouting and rankings. He just ranted and raved about how well he thinks Kevin Riley is going to age as a college prospect, thinks he'll have a really good senior season. And I think that there is a lot of reason to be really, really happy about this absolutely huge get. I know we say every get is a huge get, but or every commitment's a huge commitment for Miami. But when you look at this guy, his accolades, his superlatives, everything that he's done, I mean, heck, even just his recruiting ranking, the number 80 prospect in the country, I think that there is a lot of reason to be really, really happy about this guy.
Izubee, you've been a Jared Gibson fan throughout all this recruiting process. You spent some time with him. Now it's going to be interesting to see how his recruitment goes forward and whether Riley's presence in the Miami class eliminates Miami in that what is believed to be a Miami-Texas battle for his services. What do you think this commitment means for the Canes?
Yeah, with regarding Jared Gibson, it's going to be very interesting to see how they go on, moving after this. Obviously, they land their guy, Kevin Riley. We spoke with some people in Coral Gables. Kevin Riley's been their number one player on their big board from, since they offered him and since they started recruiting this 2024 class. But it's very interesting to see because Gibson was really, really kind of down between Miami and Texas. Obviously, Florida and Georgia were 2 schools that were still in the mix, but he was really, really focused on Miami and Texas. And now with this commitment going public, him taking that official visit to Texas this upcoming weekend, I feel like this is the perfect time for Texas to say, hey, they got their guy. Forget about them. You're locked in with us. You're our number 1 guy. So I feel like this gives Texas some more ammo to negatively recruit against Miami with Jared Gibson. But those guys down in Coral Gables said, hey, they're happy with taking 2 running backs. They're happy taking 3 running backs if Gibson wants to join them as well. But I do think this is going to have a big impact on Gibson's decision on where he views Miami and things like that. Because obviously you see, 2 running backs in the class. Okay, not too many times you see 3 running backs in the class, especially 2 high caliber guys like Gibson and Riley. But it's going to be very interesting to see where this goes with Texas and Miami. But now with this commitment from Kevin Riley, I'm leaning even more towards Gibson, landing at Texas, where people have long thought he was going to go.
All right, let's inject some video into this conversation here. This is Kevin Riley, and the thing that jumps out at me is his acceleration. He gets north and south very, very, very quickly when he's carrying the football. So that's the first thing that jumped out on me. Other than the fact that some of this competition he was playing against wasn't really very good, but you still get to see his skill set. And, as you go through this, you'll also see where they utilize him a little bit as a pass receiver. But I like his cutting ability, how he sees the hole and boom, makes a decisive move, goes north-south. Izubee, you played high school football, so you've seen your share of running backs out there on the gridiron. Probably wish that you had Kevin Riley's skills, I imagine, at various points during your career. But when you watch him on tape like this, what comes to your mind?
The first thing that comes to mind, comparison-wise, would be Alvin Kamara from the New Orleans Saints, used to play at University of Tennessee. But what I love about Kevin Riley's game is how patient he is at the line of scrimmage. You see him kind of tiptoeing before he finds that hole and just bursts through it and, goes for 6 almost every highlight on this clip. But I just love his patience in the backfield. And like you mentioned, he's a very good pass catcher. You see a few times he's in that wheel route. He's catching the ball off the backfield. He's making a guy miss. He's scoring. He's not just a one-trick pony where you're going to hand the ball off to him and he's going to pound the rock. He can go out wide. He can play a little slot receiver for you. He can add that different dimension to an offense. And another thing, too, his acceleration out of the hole. Obviously, you see guys when they kind of break away, they hit that third, their fourth. I feel like he has that fifth gear when he kicks in and no one's catching him. Obviously, a lot of guys don't have that fifth gear, and I feel like Kevin Riley does that. And like I said, the thing that I love about him the most is his patience at the line of scrimmage. If something's not there, he's going to, wait a little bit, see an open hole, and then use that acceleration, use that speed to burst through the hole. And ever since I turned on this film, I think I interviewed him when he first got the offer in October of 2022. I was like, how is this kid unranked? He rushed for 1,000 yards in, I believe, 6 games. Obviously, it's not, the best competition in the country, but just how productive he looked and how well he ran, cut, and all these things made me fall in love with Kevin Riley the first time I turned on his tape, and I'm really, really happy that Miami got a guy like this.
Steven, how about the power? We're watching him break a lot of tackles, run guys over. Right there is a perfect example. What do you think about this guy as a power runner?
I think that his play style is much, much more physical and more aggressive than just his frame. I've had the chance to interview him and stand next to him a couple times, and he's not a guy who, really jumps out at you physically. I mean, yeah, he's a little bit bigger than most guys, but you look at the way that he plays a lot bigger than he is. And I think so much of his power actually comes from his speed, because he's able to get so much acceleration that he's just able to literally blow through defenders who are either standstill or don't have nearly the same amount of acceleration and get up to the ball that Kevin Riley does. I think he has a serious chance to be a workhorse type running back at a school like Miami. And I really love the idea of him playing behind, a really big physical offensive line like the one that Miami's trying to build right now. I think if Miami is able to get their offensive line to anywhere close to the level of adequate that they're hoping that they're able to reach, I think that, or anywhere close to the standard that they're able to reach, or anything that would be considered adequate in Mario Cristobal's book, I would consider Miami to probably have a top, 5, 10, 15 running game in the country. I don't think that there would be very many programs that could stop a combination like this if they actually reach their full potential. I think the biggest thing for Kevin is just going to be how he's able to adjust to what's definitely going to be a substantially higher level of competition at the college level. As we said, kind of like a Samson Okinola thing, he wasn't playing against, top level, upper tier, fellow loaded with Division I competition like a lot of these guys at IMG or Miami Central, American Heritage, St. Thomas Aquinas, any of these programs. Although what I did take as kind of a positive and encouraging sign is that he dominated his competition exactly the way that you would expect him to, the same way Samson Okinola did. Physically better, mentally better, higher football IQ, better understanding of how to use the skill set. And I think that is something that is definitely going to translate over to a program like Miami, because you look at his film and he's not overly reliant on just being faster and stronger than his opponents. He knows how to position himself for success. He knows that he can't just blow through every single guy that he's going to play against. And I think that intelligence is going to be something that's going to allow him to adjust once he gets to the ACC.
Pure running back. I mean, you guys that get mad at me for wanting to change guys' position from time to time aren't going to have to get mad at me with this one. This kid is a pure running back. He's got great skills. He's physical, everything you want. And, so much is made of Shannon Dawson's high-flying offense. This is a guy that's old school style, Mario Cristobal style. That there's going to be times when Mario's going to want to pound the rock, even though he's going to have this great passing game. And this guy behind the offensive line, like Steven talked about, is going to give them the ability to do that, I think, over the next 3-4 years. So that's a good development. The one thing I do think he is going to learn, though, is he loves to lower that shoulder and get that shoulder involved. The dudes in college are a little bit bigger than some of those midget DBs that he was going against over there in Alabama on Friday nights. Okay. He's going to do that he's going to learn, I think, to do that a little more selectively than what he does at the prep level, or else he's going to spend a lot of time on the injured list with shoulder problems. But look, this kid is a great prospect, great pickup for Miami. Now, we talked about Jarrett Gibson and how this might impact him in his recruitment going forward. He's got the official visit to Texas. Also was in a very good place with Miami before this commitment came today. If Gibson wants to come to Miami, I think Miami would still take him and take 2 backs in the class. But I wanted to throw a little bit of Gibson video up on the screen here, just so since the Riley video is fresh in our minds. Let's watch a few clips of Gibson here, and probably a little bit more of a scat back, I would say. Izubee, would you agree with that? I don't think he runs with the same power as Riley, and if Riley truly was number 1 on Miami's board, I could see why that would be, because of his physicality, a little bit of a bigger back than Gibson. But Gibson's plenty good. Your thoughts, Izubee?
Yeah, no. So at first, when I turned on Gibson's tape, watching him through huddle and things like that, I kind of thought the same thing. He's kind of a quicker back, makes you one cut, gets up the field type of thing. But when I watched him play at IMG during their spring game, like, this kid was looking for contact. And after the game, I asked him, I was like, what were your thoughts on the game? He's like, man, nobody can touch me. I'm running through everybody. That's my style of play. I'm trying to be a physical, brutal back that just, batter rams for everyone. And I was kind of confused because if you look at him, he's not the biggest guy, but he does run very, very strong. He keeps
there it is right there. Yeah.
He's running through people, and I was watching this. Obviously, it's against IMG, so these guys on the other side of the ball aren't bad at all, and he's making them feel him. And that's one thing he said. He's like, I want to make these guys feel me, and I was like, okay, I see what you're talking about, Jarrett Gibson. But like I said, with Jarrett Gibson and Kevin Riley, to me, it's kind of a 1A and 1B type of thing. Obviously, Kevin Riley being the 1A, but if Miami were to land both of these guys, including Chris Wheatley-Humphrey, I think Miami could be set at that running back position for the next 4 or 5 years. Obviously, we have guys like Mark Fletcher coming in as a true freshman, Chris Johnson Jr. So I know last year there was kind of a lack of depth in that running back room, but how things are looking for Miami, I feel like that might be, the best position group kind of moving forward under Mario Cristobal.
Things can change fast when Mario Cristobal's on the recruiting case, and we're seeing that here. But you mentioned Wheatley-Humphrey, you mentioned Chris Johnson, who are those speed type smaller backs, and I just wonder how it all will fit together. But I think if they could get a talent like Gibson as well, that's hard to say no to. I would think. And I would think they would try to find a way to fit both of them in the class. That said, my money's on Texas this weekend with Gibson, because that's what probably is the most likely outcome of this. But we will see what happens on that front. All right, so we've got lots of coverage of the Riley commitment on the website today, and we'll have more of it, I'm sure, for you as the day goes forward. Another big visit this weekend, we talked about it on yesterday's show, was five-star defensive lineman Justin Scott. We finally got a hold of him on the phone yesterday and had the chance to talk a little bit about his visit. And guys, I mean, he made it pretty clear that Miami's still in a pretty good spot. Steven?
Yeah, Miami was in a really good place going into the visit. I felt personally like he was probably the five-star that Miami was closest with. You remember a few weekends ago, they had that really loaded weekend where they had a bunch of five stars like Colin Simmons and Dylan Stewart and David Stone and all these really, really big names come down and visit campus. I think that Miami's probably in the best spot with Justin Scott. I put that RPM in for Scott back in May. I'm still standing by that. I
backed it up.
I still think Miami is in that really good spot with him. I think right now it's just kind of a matter of waiting and seeing how he's going to end up weighing the rest of these official visits this last official visit that he's going to have to Ohio State this coming week. I personally feel like Georgia is probably a bigger threat to Miami than Ohio State. I think Notre Dame is certainly in that mix too. But the Buckeyes, I mean, I'm never going to count them out of any recruiting battle with the way that they've recruited, really over the last decade with Urban Meyer and Ryan Day. The stability that their coaching staff offers, which I have heard a lot of kids say is something that's really, really attractive, is knowing that whenever a coach gets to Ohio State, he's going to be there for at least a couple of years. So definitely not counting them out, but yeah, you have to love where Miami is sitting with Justin Scott right now.
All right, a few other recruiting things that we have on the website today. We take another look at Las Vegas Bishop Gorman four-star tight end Elijah Lofton, the guy that me, the bad guy, thinks would make a hell of a linebacker also. And I do think that ultimately the defensive coaches are going to be fighting with the offensive coaches to take a look at him as linebacker as well. But he's a very physical, good-looking tight end, just a little bit on the smaller side. But we take a closer look at how dominant of a football player that he can be for the Canes by going inside his game. So that's something for you guys to check out today. And I'll ask both of you guys. I created a little bit of a firestorm the other night on this show. The other day on the show when I brought up my opinion that I thought he would make a heck of a linebacker if he wanted to play defense as well. After being able to really look deep into the Lofton commitment, Izubee, what do you think on that front? What do you think about Lofton?
I think he's a playmaker and a football player, so you leave him on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, he's proven that he can make plays, he can score touchdowns in different ways against the best competition in the country, despite being undersized. Well, he did the Shaman Madonna. I believe he had 5 touchdowns against 7-1 game. I think 2 receiving, 3 rushing. And that's versus, one of not only the top teams in South Florida, but the top teams in the country. And you just watch his tape. I remember I turned on his huddle, and the first 3 plays, him chasing someone down after a fumble or interception from his team and making something happen. I'm like, this kid just makes football plays. So I feel like regardless of where you put Elijah Lofton, he's going to contribute to the team. He's going to be a factor to your team winning football games. And if that's on the offensive side of the ball, which I believe they should keep him at as tight end, so be it. If something doesn't happen and, hey, he has to flip to a linebacker or something like that, any other position, this kid's just going to make plays, at the end of the day and be a major contributor to a football team. And I love that about him.
Well, I'm thinking I'm thinking Elijah Arroyo. I'm thinking Riley Williams. These are bigger, lankier, pass-catching tight ends that also make big plays. And these are the kind of guys at the college level that, 6'1" Lofton is going to have to compete against. And, I'm thinking back to when Dan Morgan came to Miami and they turned him into a inside linebacker. He also was a very dynamic offensive player in high school. They made him an inside linebacker, and the rest of the story. He was unbelievable. So I think this kid's a great value pick wherever he ends up playing. I think he's going to be a very good football player. So, we've got, like I said, we've got a deeper look at his skill set on the website today. Another story on the site today for you guys to check out is 2025 Keller, Texas All Saints Episcopal quarterback Keldon Ryan, who already has more than a dozen offers, is going to be making his way through Coral Gables. Stephen, you spoke to him. Tell us a little bit about Ryan and what you see coming up for his unofficial visit that is scheduled to take place today.
Yeah, so Ryan's a guy who received this offer, I believe it was late May or early June, or right around when the evaluation period ended. Shannon Dawson, Miami's offensive coordinator, is definitely high on him. Ryan told me that he only had to see a couple of plays in order for him to say, yeah, no, that's enough. I've seen enough to pull the trigger here. So that should kind of tell you something about, where Miami, really values this kid. But, Miami bringing a Texas quarterback, a 2025 Texas quarterback at that, to Coral Gables for an unofficial visit in the middle of the week in June tells me that Miami's kind of aware that the 2024 class, 25 class, right now, they're kind of light on South Florida talent at the quarterback position. There's not a tremendous amount of, local elite quarterbacks at this moment. Now, that being said, the amount of talent that we see transfer into Miami high schools every single year, who's not to say that American Heritage isn't going to get, the next gunslinger? Who's not to say that St. Thomas Aquinas isn't going to get another Tyler Van Dyke?
Or the South Florida Express.
Or heck, the freaking South Florida Express.
It's become the new thing down here for these quarterbacks to come play in South Florida. They want to be around the skill players. Yeah,
but seeing that Miami is going to have to bring this guy in all the way from Texas tells me that they're kind of aware that right now the talent level at the quarterback position, specifically in South Florida and some of these upcoming recruiting classes outside of Beckham Kritza, the Miami Central quarterback. I believe he's a 4-star recruit at the moment, who actually transferred in from either Colorado or California. I can't remember for the life of me, but transferred in from out of state earlier this spring. I think kind of says something about the situation that, Miami's looking dead in the mirror or is, looking right at and being able to say, hey, we don't have South Florida quarterback talent at the moment. We're going to have to look elsewhere.
All right, so that unofficial visit will be taking place today, and a lot of recruiting going on at the U this week. There, you can have the Legends Camp on Thursday. We're still trying to get our hands around that, just who is going to attend that. It's looking like that's going to be mostly a 2025 recruit type of affair this year. But then there's a huge official visit weekend with a lot of these commitments coming in this weekend, and we're starting to preview all these guys. And we start out today with a story on 4-star edge Marquise Lightfoot, and he talks a little bit about his Miami visit. The Canes are in his top 3. Guys, Lightfoot, Miami is clearly recruiting him quite hard. Stephen, where do you think they sit with him?
I think they're in a really, really, really good spot at the moment. He's a guy who has been one of the faster risers in the 2024 class this year. Start of the year, he was just kind of a middle of the pack 3-star that, was kind of just a moderate name. And then all of a sudden, more and more programs start offering him, more and more programs start evaluating him. And all of a sudden, his recruitment just absolutely takes off. And now he's down to a top 3 of Miami, USC, and Ohio State. And Miami's going to have to duke it out with these programs. I think that USC is going to be some really stiff competition. He talked about how USC really impressed him on his official visit there, and how he thought that they ended up offering a lot more than he thought they were going to be able to offer. Ohio State, obviously, with the player development that they've had in recent years, Ohio State is a program that he likes a lot. But Miami, the city itself, and then Jason Taylor have both been really, really big factors. He loves the idea of living in a place like Miami. He's a kid from Chicago, and he actually said, I don't want to go spend 4 years, out in the middle of nowhere. He doesn't want to spend 4 years in a cornfield. He wants to spend 4 years. He wants to spend 4 years of college in a really big city with a lot of stuff going on, where he's always going to have something to do. He's going to be entertained. And if I'm Miami, I think that's a pretty easy pitch to sell.
Yeah, like when he's not working out, he wants to be at the beach with you, Steven. Hanging out, checking out the ladies, maybe having a brewski every now and then.
Well, he's under 21. He would never.
No. College kids don't do that, right?
Something tells me he might have.
Getting in my head.
Something tells me he might have better luck than I do with the ladies, though.
Stop. You're intending for that to be a commercial. I know that. You're looking to turn this show into a Steven Wagner dating pity party so that everybody out there says, "Oh, geez, can I fix my daughter up with Steven?" I know what you're thinking.
I'm trying to turn Hinge into one of this show's sponsors. I'm trying to get my own NIL deal.
All right. Also, our top 50 countdown, believe it or not, it's winding down to a close. We're at number 3 today. And today we talk about one of the guys that Marquise Lightfoot would like to potentially replace with the Miami Hurricanes, and that is defensive end Akeem Messidor. So make sure you check that out on the site today. All right, if you like this show, like our YouTube channel, hit your subscribe button, hit your like button. It helps increase our audience on YouTube, helps us with those algorithms, increases the pool of people that can help Steven Wagner get a date. So very, very important that you guys hit that subscribe and like button. And more than anything, if you're not yet a subscriber to CaneSport.com, please, please, please come join our community and let us continue to help enhance your fan experience as a Miami Hurricane. So for Steven Wagner, Izubee Charles, I'm Gary Ferman. Thank you so much for starting your day out with us. We'll see you next time, everybody.